The Frenemies podcast is a relatively new podcast hosted by YouTube mega rat Ethan Klein and boo-hoo let me cry on my kitchen floor Trisha Paytas.
Oh my god.
I've been keeping tabs on it recently, and I would say that I'm pretty impressed with how entertaining it's been. That is, if you find train wrecks entertaining.
I wasn't! That wasn't it! I said, oh, you listen to
That's
the
why-
on the podcast, and you're like, no, you mentioned Ela. She's the one talking about, oh, a fucking queen. You guys talk about my all the time, but her don't fucking mention her name. And you are too, and you're a fucking cunt.
In total, it has a sum of 15 episodes as of recording, and nearly every single one has the dynamic duo arguing with each other about the ideas and topics they have for the week. There's only one way I like to describe this podcast, and that is that it is the best, worst podcast around. So that's what I'm here to do. But before that, this podcast is a bit of a backstory as to why it was even conceived in the first place. So before I even really get into the video, let's get this out of the way.
Have you guys ever browsed Instagram and wondered why everyone looks so beautiful? Why does everyone have such a perfect life? Why is everyone having so much fun, has perfect skin, is always laughing and smiling? Yes! This girl is the spokesman of Instagram reality. Why are you even a model if you're gonna modify your looks that much? It's like from beauty queen to WWF wrestler in 2 seconds. You cannot Photoshop your heart and soul. Remember that. This girl tried to use a face filter on Instagram and her phone blew up. Here's another one of her. She is the best. Isn't she not the best? Would people even recognize her if they saw her on the street? I mean, she is unrecognizable. This is Coachella versus throwing down in the McDonald's parking lot at 3 a.m. This is Coachella versus World Star Hip Hop. No! That cannot be the same person. Dude, Coachella versus open casket funeral.
This one video, this one clip, was responsible for the entire encounter, relationship, and business that was created between Ethan Klein and Trisha Paytas. Now this video was made as a way of Ethan attempting to make fun of the common notion of popular celebrities and models altering their Instagram photos as a way to hide their insecurities. Some of the people Ethan covered in this video were Tana Mojo, Nikita Dragon? However, the one that ended up starting the most controversy was 100 Layers of Cum Girl. Trisha, of course, saw this video and ended up responding to Ethan with a video of her on the kitchen floor.
I'm on camera like this, so I consider myself pretty secure, but like that broke my heart for so many girls that watch that. Like...
She's crying, she's whining, she's oinking, she's swiveling her snout. I don't know, it's not important. But the point is that Ethan and Trisha were not on very friendly terms. After this incident, Ethan would make podcasts on her, Trisha would respond, they would basically have a back and forth with each other, until they finally decided to confront each other face to face on the H3 podcast.
Is it true that you've also identified as black?
Yes.
Gross.
I just had such a vivid dream of you like getting banged by 2 guys, and I was like, oh my god, this is so awkward.
We'll blur that.
They would have a bit of a discussion for the most part, keeping it civil to a degree. Trisha would confront Ethan on the video he made, and Ethan would make a stance clear that everything in the video was meant for comedy purposes, and also to portray the message that celebrities should not be altering their photos because it makes other people feel self-conscious about themselves. However, the main thing to take away from this podcast is that by the end of it, the two would somewhat reconcile and set aside their differences, and agree, for the most part, to be friendly with each other and squash the momentary beef.
Yeah, this is amazing. Wow. I love you. You're really cool.
Oh my god.
You are. Like, you're just a cool person. I want to be friends. Oh, I'm so excited.
All right, fuck this. Blah, 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 blah. Oh shit, Trisha's here. And she's dating Gila's brother. So this cute, beautiful couple came to fruition as a result of Trisha being featured on the special episode of the H3 podcast called The Bachelorette, with an H3 in the middle to represent their channel names. Basically, this episode consisted of a bunch of neckbeards filming themselves singing, dancing, doing the windmill. I don't know, doesn't matter. But what does matter is that by the end of the episode, Trisha asks about a guy named Moses, Gila's brother.
I don't know if I can say this, and you can cut it if I'm not supposed to say this, but I was like low-key hoping, because originally I was pitched the idea to come on as a contestant, and Hila's brother's going to be the Bachelor, and then I thought maybe he would apply to be on my Bachelor.
He was supposed to. I don't know what happened.
He
I looked
said
him up on
that he
Instagram,
wanted to apply.
I found his Instagram. It's fine. I'll just
We could take a last minute submission.
I don't know
He
why
said he wanted to.
didn't.
I think he's honestly super busy. He's like a fucking mega hard. He should make time though, right?
He should make time. He looked so hot. I was like low-key impressed. I was like, holy shit.
He's
like strikingly hot.
Okay, we'll make sure he gets in.
Fast forward a couple weeks later, and Ethan uploads a podcast talking about Trisha and Moses, with not very nice words to say about the both of them.
Now, your brother, we went through the first 2 rounds. We saw a bunch of videos of people that wanted to be with Trisha.
And we told her that if someone reaches out in the DM, just let us know. Just keep us in the loop.
I says, look, the first season was ruined by lack of integrity in the system. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if you have a back channel conversation, you have to disclose that to us.
Yes.
You have to tell us. And we need to bring them on the show. I don't want another wild card situation. And then we have your brother who was going to be the Bachelor before Trisha paid us. Mm-hmm. And I told him the same thing. I said, if you're going to be involved, no shenanigans, no wild card, no DM, no bullshit. You have to tell us everything. And he swore. He said it's all about the show. It's all about making the show better. Mm-hmm. And so last time, Trisha goes at the end, I was really hoping that Moses, Hila's brother, was going to apply. And we said, we thought he was too.
Because he mentioned to us.
He wanted to do it as a goof. That's what I thought, if I'm being honest, just to spice up the shit.
Right.
But now, they've been talking in the DMs apparently, because Trisha in the last episode was like, I really thought he was going to apply. I like him. Now I find out that they've been talking in the DMs on Instagram, and that they've been... Well, actually, the real thing that shocked me, and first of all, I have to urge you all that me and Hila don't know anything about this.
No.
Nobody's telling us anything.
Well, okay, so after the last episode ended with her...
Let me show this picture.
My brother, he watches the show.
We saw this on Twitter.
So here are the important things to take away from this episode. Trisha and Moses are talking and seeing each other. The pair are potentially dating. And most importantly, Ethan and Trisha are no longer on very solid terms. So how the fuck did this podcast start?
Well, my friends, here we are. They said it would never happen. Me and Trisha making a podcast, and frankly, I thought they were right.
This podcast features Ethan and Trisha basically arguing at each other, making a charade, and generally just a bunch of fat nonsense. So let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this video, which is this podcast and how it's basically been broken from the start. You see, this podcast runs based on the premise of the two people having generally conflicting personalities. Podcasts like this are gold and pretty common. Take, for example, the original of these YouTube podcasts, Baited. A podcast which featured the hosts of Colossal's Crazy, Keemstar, and Tommy C. A crew which would end up having Keem and Colossal shouting at each other for an hour, and Tommy C being the middleman and the guy on the show that always laughs. You know that guy. But the point is that Ethan's done this in 2020, but in a much more crazy, toxic, and almost psychopathic way. There are 2 episodes here that I really want to discuss, but let's not rush to the topic. I'm going to basically skim through the other episodes until we get to the nitty-gritty. So here we go. The first episode serves as an intro to the podcast, with Ethan and Trisha touching on the subject of Trisha dating Hila's brother, and how it's affected their relationship. And this subject continues on for the 3 podcasts to follow, with them addressing the landscape of how this podcast came to be.
Why are you dating my brother-in-law?
Can I tell you the truth? Like, honestly?
Yes.
Because, like, at first, it was, like, I just thought it was just, like, funny. I was like, oh, my God, this is going to be so funny. Like, I just, like, fuck him, and then I'm coming back on the podcast, like, I fucked your brother.
Yeah. And?
Yeah.
That's it?
I mean, that's how it started, for sure.
So do you usually fuck people out of just to make a joke? It's kind
yeah. Oh, no, not always, but, like, yeah, like, sometimes to be like, oh, I fucked this person. It's, like, funny. Mm-hmm.
So you fucked Moses for a joke, but then you found out that he was much more than a joke to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to be buying a house together, so it's a success.
And you guys are, so at first I was like, what's going on? This is all making me very uncomfortable because I kept, Moses kept popping up in your socials and not telling us. So I was like, what the fuck's going on?
I don't know why that. Honestly, I don't know why that. I was like, why don't you just tell them, like...
Well, that I agree with, because he made it way worse by not telling us.
Yeah, because we like definitely were like the first 2 weeks of quarantine just attached at the hip for sure. And then he had a traumatic event at his house. So then he just like, I'm like, we should just stay here forever. And that's what happened.
It actually turned out really entertaining. This podcast was actually a lot better than I thought. And it brought me back to when I used to binge watch H3H3. A trivia episode and some stupid merch drama later came the 5th episode of the podcast. Now, this is one of the podcasts that I wanted to touch on, and you'll see why in a bit. The episode started off like all the others would. They would address the current events, in this case, James Charles stealing their shitty merch idea. They would banter, talk about Trisha, blah, 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 but eventually they get into a fight. A really big fight. A really nasty one.
You were into pills. You never talk about that you were a pill addict for a minute.
What?
Yeah, you said that. You said you were really into pills, and you don't talk about that.
Why do I need to talk about that?
Because that's being open. That you're judging me for being crazy, taking pills or whatever. Like I take pills or whatever. But you've done it too, and you're just not open about it.
I don't think that is a defining characteristic of who I am.
I think that is a big thing. That makes sense. Why? Because you're on medication now, and there's no shame or judgment in it. But like, hey, if you're gonna shame me for being off meds, you should say, hey, I'm on meds.
I'm not shaming you for being off meds.
That's what it sounds like. You just call me crazy,
but here's
which
what you
means
do.
I'm off
You know what you just
medication.
did? You're trying to see. This is why you are such a dangerous person, especially to be close with, because you'll take something that I've told you. You'll take something that somebody told you in confidence, and you'll use it. You'll weaponize it against them.
That's not true.
That's what you just did.
No,
and luckily for you, I don't care, and I'm okay with it. But you go, oh well, I told you an anecdote about how I used to take tramadol back in Israel. When I was like bored in a dead-end job, and you literally just weaponized that against me.
You called me crazy, knowing my history.
Bro, we always call you crazy. You're like upfront
but
crazy.
But if you're gonna call me crazy, then I'm gonna say, hey, why don't you own up to what you've done? That also
doesn't make
crazy.
Me crazy. Okay, I'm joking around, and then you go, okay, so what do I have to weaponize against Ethan? Oh, he told me he used to take pills in Israel. I don't think he's ever said that. So here, I'm going to drop that on him.
You want me to weaponize you? Because I have things I could actually weaponize you with, and I don't.
About.
No, but I don't do it. There's certain things.
You just did it.
Moses says there's certain things about him I would never say.
And you just threatened me with doing it more. That's
because
why you're so dangerous. You can't do that.
No, I didn't. Because
you do that to everybody.
I know personal things about you, and do I say it? No.
You literally just did.
That's not that personal because you just call me crazy being off my medication. So therefore,
I didn't say anything about being off your medicine.
And then you asked me how.
I literally didn't mention being off your medicine.
Then you asked me.
I said you're crazier than me.
Oh, I said you're not open and honest about everything. You're like, yes, I am open. I'm like, are you though? And then you were pushing.
It's not that I'm hiding that I took pills. It's just you used it. It's not a.
And if you think that's bad, just wait because it gets so much worse.
God forbid anyone ever does that.
So rude. Well, you know what?
No, it's not.
Your life is sad and pathetic, and mine is happy, thriving. So good
mine
luck.
Is not
Have
sad.
fun on your beach weekend, eating room service, trying to get pregnant. Have fun with that.
That doesn't sound sad and pathetic. That sounds like a good family life. Like I have good, fulfilling, and good deep roots with a wife that I've been married to for a long time. I've got a family that we're trying to build, and I've got stability in my life.
There's something right there I could weaponize, but I'm not going to. You know why? Because you push and push, and I'm not going to push on your buttons the way you push on other people's buttons.
I wouldn't even say, oh, there's something I could weaponize. I wouldn't even say that.
Because you're saying I weaponize, and I don't. There's a perfect time to go in there and be like, actually, this.
Well, because obviously you have, I don't know what you're thinking about, but like.
And I don't consider weaponizing. I'm very open about everything. If someone brings up something that I don't want people to bring up with, I'll openly talk about it. Fine, whatever. That's just fucking me. Like, I don't care. I'll talk about it. It's not weaponizing just because I bring something up.
It definitely. I'm just trying to tell you of something you do. I'm just trying to be honest that I think you have this issue.
Well, you're wrong on this one.
But why do you think that like all your friendships, like a lot of your friendships go to shit?
I've had friends for so many years.
And all of your boyfriends and relationships. That's what I'm worried about Moses is that she's got a Rolodex of all this shit on you. And then when shit goes wrong, she's going to try to ruin your fucking life.
Shit has gone wrong and I don't expose stuff I know.
Well, yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Well, you did accuse him of fucking kind of flirting with underage girls.
No, that wasn't it. That was not.
Well, that was kind of fucked up.
No,
You're like, oh, I had a fight. I'm going to accuse him of being with underage girls.
Why was this uploaded on YouTube? This feels wrong to watch. I feel like that's just some sort of Columbine basement tape that I shouldn't have been watching. And yeah, you could say he wants to entertain the fans. It is, but it's entertaining for the same reasons that you would watch a lively recording or a car crash. This episode seemed like it would be the last one ever. But eventually they would reconcile on the 6th episode. Episode 7 would have a guest, Dr. Drew. He comes on as more of a mediator so the two can kind of address their problems and get past this issue. They address the beginning of their interactions with each other all the way down to present day. It was actually kind of a nice moment on the podcast, and it made me see both of them in a different light. There were actually a lot of good moments in the podcast, and it continued on for several more episodes. Until it stopped.
Alrighty. Frenemies, second ep of the week.
This podcast had undoubtedly their biggest fight yet on camera. And it was such a nasty fight to the point where you wonder, why the fuck would you leave this up for millions of people to see? Why would you leave the mental breakdown of your co-host to be up on the internet? For entertainment? Really?
Don't talk about Hila. We're cutting this part out. She doesn't want to be talked about.
Are you fucking serious?
I'm serious. We have to cut this.
That's fucking crazy. Like, what's even the point? She doesn't want to be talked about.
Because she doesn't like that you're always bringing her up and saying how she doesn't like you and all this shit because it's not true and she finds it annoying because she doesn't want people to start thinking that like she doesn't actually like you.
I just hate people who think they're just too fucking good for shit.
It's not she's too good.
She has a fucking podcast. When you have a podcast, you're talked about. Your life's talked about. You guys talked about Moses and me.
Dude,
well before we did this podcast, you guys talked about us. Never once asked me anything.
No, it's because you always make the same comment about her.
You asked me one thing this summer, or when we Moses started dating. You never, but you guys talked about me.
I don't even know what you're on about.
Just all this
she
shit.
just doesn't want you.
She's too
not
good.
Too good.
Don't fucking mention my name. Meanwhile, you guys can talk about whoever you want. You guys talked about me all spring without
you can talk about whatever you want too. She just doesn't like that you always come on and make the same comment.
Podcast. She's not a fucking private figure. She has a podcast on this fucking
you guys
channel.
are family. It's different.
No, fuck off.
You're with her brother.
I won't come back here. Like if you want me, I know you guys own that fucking building too, but like I'm not gonna come back in this house because I'm so over it.
You see, when you watch an episode of reality TV, it isn't nearly as bad because normally the people in the show are fighting about pointless things that aren't really personal. Oh, Snooki talks shit about JWoww behind her back and JWoww confronts her. Who cares? No one really gives a shit. But the reason this podcast gets so uncomfortable is the fact that they talk about very personal, family-related subjects in front of their viewers. Almost like they're fucking divorcing at a family dinner. And it's kind of like, I really don't want to be here right now. Like, I don't want to watch this.
Whatever.
Like,
all this is gonna be cut. It's so pointless. I literally don't care. Cut it. Don't give a shit. Don't give a shit about you guys. Like I literally don't care. Moses doesn't like you, and you guys don't like him, and that's cool. I'm happy to.
That's stupid.
But it's true. It's so.
Well,
true.
that's fucked up. That's the kind of shit you say that makes Hila mad because you go, Moses doesn't like you, and so what you're doing, is you're causing problems in their family.
That's so not true.
And that's fucked up.
She goes, you told Trisha this.
She doesn't want any more of that.
Excuses. It's like who the fuck are you, bitch?
Say what? What did she say?
She said I read it. I saw it because I was on fucking TikTok.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't read his private fucking message
when
with
I'm
his
on
sisters.
TikTok and there's a message that comes up and I see it, I'm not reading it. I see it.
Yeah,
and
no,
I see
you're
my
reading
name
his private
brought up.
messages with his sister. You shouldn't do that unless he shares it with you.
And he does.
Okay, so what did he say? So what did she say?
We're not even talking about it.
It's not. Look, exactly. This is what she doesn't want.
But when my name's being brought up, I'm not gonna fucking.
She's
whatever.
not talking about you. She's having a conversation with her brother.
All right, cool.
She's really upset because she was saying how Hila doesn't like her.
Hila says, don't talk about me on the podcast. All I said was you should have the guest. He's like, we can't mention Hila. She doesn't want me to talk about, she's too good for a fucking podcast. Even though we were talked about, they never once consulted me at the beginning of spring. She has a fucking podcast. I brought life to the fucking H3 channel, but Hila's too fucking good to even mention her name. I said nothing bad. I said like, we should have her as a guest or whatever like that. Don't even mention Hila. She doesn't want to be talked about. Fucking
Okay.
I literally don't care. Literally, I don't want to come back because I really fucking hate her.
So she always making comments about the family and how
I wasn't. That wasn't it. I said, Hila should be a guest on the podcast. And you're like, don't fucking mention Hila. She's the one we talked about. A fucking queen. You guys can talk about my shit all the time. But her, don't fucking mention her name. Dumb fucking bitch.
Okay.
I think we should just end it, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too.
She's such a fucking bitch.
She's not.
And you are too. And you're a fucking cuck.
You
have no fucking backbone.
All right, you should leave. We'll talk later. Yeah, you should get out.
I am going, but we're not talking later. Fucking bitch, you too. I don't care. Fucking dummy. I couldn't care less.
I think we struck a nerve.
This podcast leaves me very confused. Not only did Ethan keep this episode up, but he clipped and monetized it for the H3 Highlights channel. In other words, he saw this and was like, yeah, this is good, and then makes money off that shit. I mean, this is the kind of shit he criticized Keemstar for with the Etika shit. Frenemies is weird. It's one of the better, more entertaining podcasts that have ever been released. And it's some of Ethan's best content of recent memory. But it falls at the expense of the two of them. And to think this all happened from just one video. This podcast is great. It brings out the best in the both of them. It has a lot of heartwarming moments which makes me think that there's a redemption arc for the two of them. But it also brings out the worst in them. With Ethan's cynicality and his attempting to clip and monetize breakdowns on camera, and Trisha's passive aggressiveness being used as a way to attack Ethan and his family. But all that being said, I think that Frenemies is probably the best, worst podcast ever made. Thanks for watching.